Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program 1979 American League Baseball Rookie of the Year and one of the Minnesota Twins' top 50 best players in their team's 61-year history. I welcome to the program John Castino. John, great to have you. It's an honor.
Thank you, Brian. The honor's all mine, and happy to be here.
So, John, let's begin. 1976, you're playing for Rollins College, a year in which you were voted Baseball All-American, MVP Collegiate Player of the Year in the state of Florida.
You've done your homework.
Yeah, I'm assuming with those credentials, besides the Twins, you must have had other Major League Baseball scouts interested in you.
Well, that's an interesting story. I think there were, but the reason I got drafted by the Twins, I think it was one of those destiny things. Calvin Griffith, who owned the Twins at the time, said, why don't you draft that kid from Rollins College that hit a home run off Burt Blyleven in a exhibition game. Well, I was All-American, and I was the MVP of the state of Florida, but Calvin told people that he wanted to draft that guy that hit the home run off Burt, and it was actually a different Italian kid on the team named Russ Riccadelli. And so fate, has its way of working things out, and I went to the Twins and ended up third round and played third base for the Twins for 2.5 years in the minors, and got up to the major leagues, and that's another story in itself.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, the Twins obtained you 76 third round June free agent draft. Now, take us back, if you can, your reaction to the call from the Twins. Where exactly were you hearing the news? Take us back to that time in your life, that big time in your life.
I was in Chicago suburb called Kenilworth, and I knew the draft was going on, but I was next door mowing the lawn for our next door neighbor because my mom was really good at, collecting jobs for us around the neighborhood to earn extra money in the summer. And so I had the radio on, and I heard my name called, or the news people or somebody. I heard it on the news, and then I went next door to my house, and then I got a phone call from the Twins, and it was Angelo Giuliani. So Calvin thought it'd be good to have an Italian scout call us and let me know. Angelo ended up coming to our house within the next week, and when he got to the front door, he started speaking Italian. my dad, whose father was Italian, my dad didn't speak a word of Italian, so that was kind of interesting. And he said, "Come on in. We don't know any Italian." And they sat there and we talked, had a good time. Angelo was a good guy, and I was very fortunate to be drafted by the Twins, and grateful.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned your dad. Your dad must have been proud.
Yeah, my dad was proud. My mom was more intense competitor than my dad. My dad was a good athlete. He was all-state basketball, also city of Chicago basketball player down in the city when he grew up. Saw clippings of him in the newspaper. But the best athlete in the family was Mary Rose Klein Castino, my mother. And they just wouldn't let girls play sports back then. But I remember stories of her other men telling me how she would tackle the boys in high school when they played football, and that she was the best player of all of them. So I give credit to both my parents for some athletic ability, but I think the intensity came from my mother.
Wow, so it's in the Castino blood, and we're talking with John Castino from the Minnesota Twins. He's with us this morning. Now, I looked up your minor league stats, John. You performed very solidly, 77-78, the year in which, you were hitting between 16 to 18 homers, looking at your stats in Double-A ball for the Orlando Twins. Did you find Double-A ball challenging when you first got there?
Yes, I ended up getting sent down my first summer in Orlando Twins Double-A. My first at bat, I hit a home run in Orlando, and I know my Rollins College coach set up a Castino day because he figured I was on my way.
and I think we lost John. We lost John. So he'll probably give us a call back. And, we're on the telephone line with 1979 American League Rookie of the Year award winner, John Castino of the Minnesota Twins. He co-shared that honor award with Alfredo Griffin of the Toronto Blue Jays in 1979. And if you look at John Castino's stats, early 80s, he was really regarded as a high-profile infielder with tremendous athletic fielding abilities. And, of course, he played for that 79, 80, 81, 82, 83 Minnesota Twins, a team that was managed by Billy Gardner. I don't know if you remember people listening, Billy Gardner, who was 1961 World Series Yankees champion. Billy Gardner was a former Yankee player. He was on that roster, the 61 Yankees. John, sorry, we lost you there, but thanks for calling back.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was just mentioning, so we were talking about the Orlando Twins. You found it challenging when you first got there.
Yeah, I was hit a home run my very first at bat with the Orlando Twins, and my manager from Rollins College, my coach, set up a John Castino day in Orlando about a month later. But I was hitting 186 at the time. I got too greedy. I tried to pull everything, and it was definitely nothing to do with health or anything else other than just bad strategy at the plate. I got a little greedy, and so they sent me to Visalia. So I was there for 2.5 months, and I hit 16 homers in Visalia in just probably 2 months, and hit 320 something. And then at that point, they knew I was good, ready for Double-A ball. So I went back to Orlando the next year for a full season. Ended up on the All-Star team in the Southern League, which is a tough league. You're busing everywhere, 12, 14-hour bus rides. Virtually no days off. It's a Southern League. Anybody that survives that league and does pretty good stats has got a good chance.
Now, your call up to the big leagues, I believe your debut came in April 6, 79, Twins versus A's. That was the
That's
game
right.
where, right, you replaced Mike Cubbage, right, at third base?
How would you know that?
I just studied your stats. I studied the box scores, and I saw this.
Well, that's another story where Gene Mauch, who was hesitant, I think, to take me north, wanted me to platoon with Mike Cubbage. And I had, decent speed. I was no speed runner like Ricky Henderson or anything, but I'd, averaged a little of average speed. Well, my first major league game I ever got in was Gene put me in to pinch run for Cubbage in the 8th inning because he wanted my defense on display to hold the lead. And, I was on the bench and wasn't loose, no warning or anything, so I got in first base. And my legs are tight and hamstrings, all that kind of stuff. And the very first pitch, he calls a steal. I'm like, oh, shit. Oops, sorry. Oh, shoot. I've got a steal. I'm not even loose yet. I'm going to pull a hamstring. So I got picked off at first, so I figured I better cheat and get off and try to get a good jump. And so I got picked off. And that was my first enter into the major leagues. And unfortunately, I played the next day because Frank Tanana, a lefty, was pitching the next game in Anaheim. And so I started, and I can't remember if I got 1 or 2 hits, but I made some good defensive plays, got a hit or two, and that kind of broke the ice.
Yeah, and just the box score says that was a brief debut. It was the 9th inning, I believe, right? It was.
Yeah, it could have been 8th or 9th, somewhere up there.
9th inning.
It was 40 years ago, so.
Now you mentioned Gene Mauch. I read that Gene Mauch was really high on your fielding abilities.
Yep.
Right.
He was. Yes, he was. He was. But it took me a while to show him that I could hit. And so he told. Actually, we're in the Southern League, Clearwater, Florida. We had an instructional league for the Twins, and Gene was there trying to see what young talent there was to bring up to the big leagues. Ken Herbeck was there, a guy like Frank Bell or Timmy Lund or whatever, guys that are still in the minor leagues. And Gene had told Herbeck that Castino will never play in the big leagues. And I think Herbeck told me that, right? So he even put it in his book. And then I don't know why, but I convinced him in spring training the very next year that good enough anyway, that he selected me to go north to play for the Twins, and I, of course, Rookie of the Year. And then my second year, I hit 302, so even better with 13 homers and good fielding. So, yeah, I convinced him. I don't know what it was that he didn't like when I first got to Instructional League in Clearwater, Florida, but I changed his mind somehow. And like I said, Herbeck laughs about it now and put it in his book and said, geez, Cass, you showed him. But Jim was nice to me. He called me Rook all the time. He was very nice to me. He sent his pitching coach, Camilo Pascual, because I didn't have a sport coat. I didn't even know I was going to go north to the big leagues. I figured there's no way he's going to take me. I'd never been to AAA even, just played 1 year at AA. And he sent Camilo Pascual to a downtown Minneapolis shop so I could get a sport coat. So I didn't have much money, so Camilo and I settled on a green double-breasted blazer for $7.50, and that allowed me to stay on the plane and the bus rides and everything else that required a sport coat.
Well, John, you proved Gene Mauch wrong. I mean, you made it to the big leagues. Now, here's the thing, though. 79, you had some defensive season because I looked this up. The rest of the season for 79, you led the American League third basemen in double plays, a season which had the likes of George Brett and others playing the same position. And that year, your fielding percentage was higher than Brett and many others. Yeah,
thank you. I had defensively, I loved playing defense. My goal was to never let a ball get between Roy Smalley and me or third base and me when I was at third. So I was always on the alert and anticipated every pitch. I worked very hard at defense, too, and my quickness. I kept my weight down and kept my legs strong and my aggressiveness intact. And that's why every time we had a lead, we platooned for about a month. And then Gene finally put me in for the rest of the year, and I felt bad for Mike Covage, who recently, this last year, passed away of cancer. Good guy, good teammate, and a good man. So I felt bad to Mike Covage, but Mike got some pitch hitting in once in a while, and then he got traded.
Right, so your glove and assurance handling the ball, a key asset to the team, no question, which earned you American League Rookie of the Year. How important, John, was receiving that award to you?
Well, very important. I didn't know it was coming, of course. They're very secretive, and it was tied with Alfredo Griffin, who was a good shortstop from Toronto. And I just remember I didn't even know about it until I started seeing trucks, TV trucks, coming to our front door in Orlando, right in front of our house being parked. And I'm like, something's going on. And then all of a sudden there were probably 3 or 4 at least TV trucks and guys with their microphones and their tape recorders. And so that was very exciting, no question about that.
So this was 79. By 1980, I mean, you were leading the third basemen in assists. Now, during your tenure with the Twins, a couple of players that come to mind, a couple of your teammates that really stood out was Kent Herbeck, Gary Gaetti, and then later on, Frank Viola. Any memories you can share about? Too. Oh, yeah, Kirby Puckett.
Kirby Puckett.
Right. Because he came in 84, 85, right, Puckett?
Yeah, I played in 84 for a little while. My last game in my career was in Anaheim, and Kirby Puckett's first game that he ever played was in Anaheim. So his first game was my last game, and we got 7 hits together that day. I'll never forget that. He got 4 hits, I got 3, and I just loved Puckett. But I was still hanging around the team because I was in and out of the hospital with injections and all kinds of traction and all kinds of back stuff. So I was still in and out of the stadium. And I got to know Kirby Puckett pretty well, and even after his career, Kirby and I hung out a little bit, had some good times. He was an awesome guy, Kirby Puckett, just terrific.
All right, see, I didn't know that, so that's a baseball fun fact for everyone listening on John Castino. I didn't know that. But Kent Herbeck, Gary Gaetti, 2 great players, right?
Great teammates, too. Both of them wanted to win. They didn't care who got the game-winning hit. The most unselfish players, I think those 2 are probably the most unselfish teammates I've ever had. They didn't care who got the winning hit, as long as we won. They wanted to win so bad. And I made a prediction in 84, before the season started. We were pretty bad. We had bad records in the early 80s. And I made a prediction at the Twins breakfast to open the season up. And I was captain of the team at the time, so I had to go up and speak. And I said, this team's going to win a World Series pretty quick. and I got laughter. I got people just laughing like crazy because we were second to last place. I said, you don't realize how good these young players are that came up, and more laughter. And I said, all right. And then 2.5 years later, we get our first in '87, which unfortunately I wasn't able to do because of my back. And then another one with basically the same guys in '91. So I knew what we had, and I wish I could have hung on longer to participate in it.
Now, Billy Gardner, he was the manager of the Twins. He was your manager, right? How was Billy as a manager? Did you get along with him well?
Everybody got along with Billy well. He was such a friendly guy. Now, each manager was different. We got Gene Mauch, who's very intense, very intelligent, but not easy to get along with, I don't think. But a fantastic strategic manager. And then Billy Gardner, who was, and Johnny Gorel first, and then Billy Gardner, I think. So, and Billy Gardner was very calm, very loose, very relaxed. So it was a much more relaxed atmosphere. And Johnny Gorel was a good manager as well. He was there for a year when I was playing. And just loved each one of those guys for different reasons.
Now, I'm just looking at some of your stats. For me, your best season was 1980. I don't know if you agree. You hit 302, yes. 17 doubles, 7 triples, 13 homers. You also had a strong season in 83, a couple of years later, hitting 277 with 30 doubles and 11 homers. Now, this is when you had the back pain.
Well, no, I had a spinal fusion after the 81 season. And in the 82 season, I was in a body cast all winter. And the doctor said, you're going to skip a year. First of all, the surgeon said, you're not going to ever play again. And I changed his mind on that pretty quick. And then Calvin said, you're done, Cass. Our surgeon was Harvey O'Phelan. And he said, you're not going to play anymore with that spine the way you're at. So I wanted to prove everybody wrong, of course, and I just loved playing the game. So I worked. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift weights. So in 1982, I was horrible. 241, I think I hit, and 5 homers or something. It was a terrible year because I was in a body cast the whole off season. 5 months of body cast before they'd take that thing off, and I couldn't do any push-ups, couldn't do any weights. They said be very gentle with that fusion. We wanted to become solid. So that was a horrible off season for me to go through that, and then go to spring training, which they didn't expect me to be at, and I said I'm playing. And I think it was a mistake, though. I should have taken a year like most of the athletes do now and do physical therapy and get stronger again. And that's why 1983 was better, because my college coach, Boyd Coffey at Rollins College, said, Johnny, you're so skinny. And this is not when guys were lifting weights much back in the early 80s. Everybody does it now. And he said, Johnny, we got to build you up a little bit. So I lifted weights in before the 83 season, and I got off hot. I was leading the American League in home runs the first month. I had probably, 6 in the first month, something like that. But anyway, I got off to a hot start, hitting great, and then the back started crumbling again. And I was in and out of the lineup, and I didn't have a full that 83 season, unfortunately. Otherwise, those stats would have been a lot better. I had only probably 300 at-bats in 83. I can't remember. I didn't look at my stats. But I didn't play a full season. Matter of fact, Billy Gardner said, Cass, I was going to send you to the All-Star game, but it was a week before. I hurt my back again a week before the All-Star game, or at least a week before it was announced. And he said, I can't send you. I can only send somebody that can play. And I said, okay, no problem, Billy. I don't care about the All-Star game anyway. So that's kind of a summary of what happened during the 82-83 season and why 83 was better, at least to start. And then second half of the year, I only played probably 2/3 of the games in the second half.
But you're right, 83, you got off to the best offensive start of your career. I mean, it was a June 13th game. You went 3 for 5 against the Royals. By that time, you were hitting like 315 or so. Yeah,
I was hitting well over 300 with a lot of home runs, and I was off to a great start. And then, as fate would have it, the back started crumbling again, and that was the end of that. So then, since then, I've had 3 more spinal fusions. So I just had a defective spine, is what all the surgeons have been telling me. It's nothing I did other than played. I dove for a lot of balls and had a lot of collisions, and I think that style of play probably exacerbated and sped up the process of being injured, not able to play anymore.
So 84, your final years, you call it quits. Obviously, the back had something to do with it. Your final game, do you remember it well? Did you know that was going to be your final game, your final at bat?
I didn't know anything until I dove into home plate. Again, it was in Anaheim, Minnesota. Puckett's first game, my last. I had 3 hits, he had 4. I dove into home plate, and that.
Yeah, it looks like we lost John again. I just mentioned to John that 83, he got off to his best offensive start of his career. He was batting .315 in the beginning of the season, and then at May 7th, 84, the Twins were playing Anaheim, and the bottom of the 8th, Castino re-injured his back, as the story goes, while scoring from third on a sacrifice fly. So apparently that injury put him on the inactive list, and if he calls in again, I want to, ask him a little bit about that injury. And he was on the inactive list, but reading John's career, he's arguably considered one of the top 50 Minnesota Twins best player in their 61-year history. And again, John, I'm sorry, we keep losing you. I apologize. I don't know if that's me or that's your phone. But so you said you re-injured your back May 7th, 1984, scoring from third on a sacrifice fly, right?
Yep, that sounds right. I dove into home plate, which is stupid, but that's what happened.
All right. So after baseball was over, so what did you do? Were you still involved in the game?
Well, I was for a while because I had 3 more years on a guaranteed contract. So I felt terrible. Now Carl Pohlad owned the team. He had bought it from Calvin Griffith. And I said to Mr. Pohlad, I said, I will fulfill my 3 years. You don't have to pay me anymore. I'll do whatever you want. And he said, how about being my assistant? And to Carl Pohlad, the owner, I said, sure, I'll do whatever you want. So I did that for a while. And then I had a board meeting. I was in on a board meeting with all of the high executives of the Twins and the scouts, some of the scouts, and a manager, et cetera, et cetera. And they asked me, one of the guys, I'm not saying who, and one of the guys asked me, all right, Castino, who are the guys on the team that are doing coke or doing drugs, partying too much, this or that? And I was just silent. And after that meeting, I walked out. My heart was still with the players. I don't know if you can understand this. My heart was still with the players. And now I'm in the management. It's almost like the enemy, because you're always going against arbitration against them, et cetera. So it's very difficult to change my mindset from being a player and part of this team of guys I loved, and all of a sudden being on the opposite side. I just couldn't do it. So I told Mr. Pohlad I'm moving on. And I think it was a week later I ended up making that decision and moving on. So, but I do feel like before I left, I gave some really good advice to Mr. Pohlad. One was to re-sign Kent Herbeck, because he said it was up for free agency or whatever, and I said, you can't. He said, what do you think? I said, you don't have a choice. You gotta keep Herbeck. He's the straw that stirs the drink here in Minnesota for the Twins. And then a little later, he had to figure out who would be the manager, and he wanted to hire Jim Fry of the Cubs. And he said, because he has more experience. And I said, you got to hire Tommy Kelly. Tommy Kelly has better baseball instincts than anyone I've ever seen or watched coach a game. He was always our third base coach. When we talked baseball, his instincts were unbelievable. So I said, I'd hire Tommy Kelly out of Jim Fry, no question about it. Players respond to Tom Kelly, and he got great instincts. He did end up hiring. He was mad at me for that suggestion. I'll never forget it. He says, well, I'm in charge, I think experience is more important, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, but that's my opinion. He wasn't too happy with me. And he hired Tom Kelly, and I'm glad he did. He brought him 2 World Series.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so then now do you still follow the game? Is the Twins still in your heart?
Oh, I love the Twins. I still read about them a lot, but being here in Florida, there's not a lot of news on the Twins, but I do get the newsletters, and I get online with the Twins. I did had a good relationship with the former Twins president, Dave St. Peter. And he and I met a few times, and we talked baseball, and I just really missed it. And I still miss the game. Shoot, I was an athlete all my life, and then had to switch over. I did finish my college degree my senior year, and then I went on to get a master's degree in business administration from St. Thomas University in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and went into the investment business.
And, another interesting fact that I read here, tell me if this is true. Brooks Robinson really liked your defense ability, didn't he?
He did, which surprised. I mean, it didn't surprise me, but I was very flattered. He said to me, I did an interview with him after a Royal Orioles game, and he was just a gentleman. Brooks Robinson, what a class guy. And he said there's a lot of comparisons between you and me, kid. And I go, I've heard those. And he said, well, I agree. He said, you have a lot of the same mannerisms I had at third base. And it was just a huge compliment, and what a nice thing to do for a young kid. It was just, I think, my second year into the league is when he and I had that conversation, but just a class guy.
I mean, that's high acclaim for Brooks Robinson to say that, arguably the greatest third baseman, fielding player in the history of the game. That's really an accomplishment. Yeah,
thank you. It was quite a compliment, and he had great instincts. But we had very similar mannerisms, I think, the way we dove for balls and how we got up and threw the ball, et cetera, and how we attacked the ball aggressively from third base. I didn't watch him much when I was a kid. I was a big Cubs fan because I didn't get a chance to see him much. But we ended up having similar mannerisms on the defense.
That's remarkable. So, John, listen, my time is up. I really appreciate a few minutes of your time. I really do.
Happy to do it, Brian. Good luck with everything, and thank you for the interview.
It's my pleasure. John Castino, Minnesota Twins. Until next week, happy collecting to all.